I want to look at a brief scene from George Benjamin's masterful opera, Written on Skin, to see how he's developed a harmonic language of great power and beauty without having recourse to conventional tonality, nor to a total subjectivity of approach. To isolate any one aspect of a score is to do the music a disservice. By looking at George Benjamin's harmony specifically, we're dealing with an abstraction. Scores can be deceptive, and the actual effect of this piece in the opera house is something unique and inimitable. One thing that never comes across in a piano reduction is the effect of the orchestration. In this opera, Benjamin makes use of very light textures much of the time, with the emphasis on the human voice. This was a conscious priority of his, and it comes through very clearly in performance. The result is that the orchestra often serves to support and accompany the vocal line, almost forming a harmonic aura or halo around it. In attempting to analyze the harmony, then, we're effectively killing the music, or in a certain sense, deconstructing it. I hope, however, the result will be that we can get some insight into how the music works, if only on a subconscious level. It's been the most successful opera in the past decade, and perhaps in this century, and I want to understand why it works so well and how he's reached a balance between atonality and a more tonal approach. So let's just listen to this scene, which is between the protector, who's a wealthy landowner, and a boy who's an illuminator of manuscripts. And the protector has hired the boy to create a book for him.
Make me a book. Fill it with illumination. Paint me the life to come. Paint deeds of angels. Show me graves opening, the damned shuffled into ovens, and the just, us, my family, the pure and just. Show us in a rightful place. Show us in a paradise. A book costs money, says the poor. I'll give you money. A book needs long time. I'll give you money. I'll give you light. But first, show me proof. The boy takes from his satchel an illuminated page. This, says the boy, shows a work of mercy. Here, look, 3 men, all starving, 2 wheeling on this cart, the 3rd.
If we imagine that the key of C major is this sort of neutral field or neutral background on which a composer can modulate to different keys, we can see how having the protector in E flat major, having him in a flat key, gives this sense of darkening. He's a dark character. He's kind of the villain of the piece. Whereas the boy is in a very bright key by contrast. He seems almost to be in A major or C major. A major being the relative major key of C minor, And this relationship, they're both mediants in relation to C major, E flat being on the minor side and A major being the major submediant to C major. I think there's some kind of tonal symbolism going on here, where when the boy appears, he's in a very bright key, in deliberate contrast to the protector who's in a dark key, a flat key, I should say. Already there's this tension going on and this interplay between two quite distant regions, separated by a tritone, which is considered the most dissonant interval. But it's quite a euphonious contrast, I have to say, between the sort of E flat major and the A major. It's like a perfect polarization along the lines of the tritone in their relationship to C major.
Paint me the life to come, paint deeds of angels.
Whereas the boy is this ethereal, angelic figure, literally, having him singing in bright keys, in deliberate contrast to the protector, emphasizes the difference between them. And you get these very tasty cross relations between the boy's melodies and the accompaniment in the orchestra. Because in this opera, the orchestra is always serving the vocalists and the singers. And I think George Benjamin understands very well how to bring out a voice part, so that even when the texture is quite dense, often the voice will be in such a deliberate cross-relation or dissonance in relation to the accompaniment that it always sticks out very audibly. It's not just a question of texture or dynamics, it's also a question of tonality and harmony.
The boy takes from his satchel an illuminated page. This, says the boy, shows a work of mercy.
So even though we experience a real strong contrast when the first miniature is shown, yet we remain in roughly the same tonal territory. I think given that this miniature is a work of art, but a very ancient work of art in relation to the audience, it makes sense that the texture becomes very thin and much more contrapuntal at this point, to give that impression of an ancient work of art and this great distance of years between us and what's being illustrated. Whereas the protector's music is in a much more romantic idiom, I would say. It's very full harmonically and texturally. And I think that makes sense because the protector is this dark romantic figure in the sense that he's very idealistic. He lives almost in his own world where everything's perfect, everything is in order, and yet he has a very strong imagination for this reason. I think it works very well with that rich romantic idiom to have him singing about paradise and his dreams while he's actually living in a state of delusion. But there's always this tonal implication throughout this passage in the background, and it's surprisingly stable, surprisingly constant.